Thanks for tuning in to another installment of Advanced TV Herstory, a podcast that analyzes shows and celebrates women of television. Thousands of comedies, variety shows, and dramas have aired, yet the presence of strong women, both in front of and behind the camera, is often a story untold. Well, Advanced TV Herstory begs to differ. There's so much more, and it's worth telling and retelling. Sometimes shows offer great leadership lessons, or are so timeless in their writing that people say the series has aged well. We'll explore those shows further. We'll revisit moments in TV where women broke records, exceeded expectations, or put their careers on the line. Advanced TV Herstory will connect the treasures of the past to the great potential of today's TV and online platforms, and how it all plays a part in being a woman in America today. Tomorrow's success is rooted in understanding what has come before us. So gear up for a little storytelling and fun, sociology, fashion, economics, or strategy. It's all here in Advanced TV Herstory. I'm your host, Cynthia Bemis Abrams.
Welcome, listeners. Today's segment features an interview with Susan Silver, a woman who has witnessed TV herstory firsthand while seated at her IBM Selectric a few decades ago. Among Susan's TV sitcom writing credits, the legendary Mary Tyler Moore Show, Love American Style, Bob Newhart, and the pilot for the TV show Maude, starring B. Arthur. In doing those shows, Susan's worked with the very best in the industry. So Advanced TV Herstory, which you can follow on Twitter, our handle is @TVHerstory, has followed Susan Silver on Twitter for nearly a year. And we're going to hear from Susan about some of the topics she tweets about, from her show on Robin Hood Radio to her observations of women in TV today. Find Susan on Twitter at SUZ_8. Her wit and her way with words and her enthusiasm for all things pop and cultural here in the United States, which has served her so well to create quality TV through all these years, is right there on Twitter today. But in this interview, we covered her background and her seat in the first golden era of TV herstory. We then fast forward to 2016 and TV's coverage of women and politics. We discuss almost every angle, from the anchors and the commentators to women political figures finding their voice on the nation's most pressing issues. Finally, we review successful women showrunners and how political women are covered in drama and comedy today, including the satirical talents of Samantha Bee. So regular listeners, remember this. TV herstory is unfolding before our eyes. Let's take a breath and think about how 2016 will shape the voices, the careers, and experiences of women of all ages for years to come. I hope you find this conversation with Susan Silver to illustrate that tremendous pace of progress we're living today, we're feeling today, and why we're so exhausted at the end of every week. So we are talking today with Susan Silver, who is a TV legend, not only as a writer, but as an observer of all things TV, which of course then evolves into pop culture. And I got to know Susan Silver literally through Twitter only, via Jennifer Cation Armstrong and the fabulous book she wrote, Mary, Lou, Ted, and Rhoda. Welcome, Susan, and good morning on this beautiful Saturday morning.
Thank you. I'm usually not up this early. No, I'm just kidding. I am, but I sound as though I'm still asleep. So yes, it's true that we kind of found each other on Twitter, but just in talking a little bit about that historic period of time when MTM Enterprises, the start of quality TV, and really the opening of doors of women comedy writers. And you were certainly among that group of women to do that. So tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into TV, and what you're doing today to keep your hand in the game and your voice being heard. Okay. As far as my voice goes, I do have a radio commentary. It's called Susan Says, which is probably a good title because it's me saying things. It's on RobinHoodRadio.com, and then it's on the Real Radio. It's an NPR affiliate, a very small station, upstate New York, and AM 1020 and FM 91.9. But I don't listen to the radio because I'm not in the car, so I listen to my podcasts on the internet. And I talk about media, culture, politics, and then things that, I don't know, can I say piss me off? Things that annoy me, and that's called Oh Come On, and that's a lot of things. It's usually noise and things that have to do with Donald Trump. But anyway, I want to say, like Ted Baxter said, it started in a small 5,000-watt radio station. I grew up in Wisconsin, sort of Midwest, small-town values, like Mary in Minneapolis. And then I went to Chicago, I went to Northwestern, yay. And then I went to UCLA. Yeah, went to UCLA film school and worked in advertising and television. And my first job was at a small TV station, a local TV station. And then I worked as an associate producer for Mort Saul on a talk show, which was kind of interesting and fun. And then I saw an ad in the paper for Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, and I got a job as assistant to the casting director, and he died. I had nothing to do with it, I promise you. And then I became the casting director of Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, and that's how I got into television.
Okay, so then, so you ended up doing some production, you got your starts, and wrote for some shows, right?
Well, then what happened?
An autobiography at some point, because you
have
such a vantage point.
I have my memoir out right now to publishers. Please, everybody, say you want to read it, and it's called "Famous People I Did Not Have Sex With," but we won't go into any details now. That's the title.
Nice.
It's about being a woman in a man's world. It's about being a baby boomer and going through all those things that we all have. And it's also about kind of reinventing yourself as you go on in life as a woman and kind of accumulating grandchildren when you don't have children. There's a knack to that, too, that we can talk about at some point. But back in the day, when I was at Laugh-In, I ran into a fellow who said to me, I have a girlfriend who wants to write. I know you want to write, so I'm going to put you two guys together. And her name was Iris Rayner Dart, and she wrote Beaches later on, and she became my partner, and she was managed by the late, great Gary Marshall, who was my mentor and dearest friend, who sadly I lost a couple weeks ago after 47 years of making each other laugh. And he had a company that he had started where he trained young writers, and we became his woman team. And we wrote A Love American Style, and that was our first show. And then Iris kind of stepped away to have a baby, and I saw this show called Mary Tyler Moore, and I said, Gary, I can do this show. Get me an appointment. And he did. So as I say, I started on top, and it was all downhill for the next 20 years. Because that was the best show ever with the best people to work for, and you worked in a way that nobody else did. You worked with them all day long and breaking your story and trading lines, and it was a marvelous experience, and they allowed you to come to the tapings, and you were involved with the rewriting, and other shows you kind of just handed in your script, and that was it.
Sure. And shows then that followed Mary Tyler Moore, it couldn't have all been downhill from there. And
no. But it was the best
voice.
Yeah, the best experience. It was they were incredible guys, and I did Bob Newhart for them. I wrote the first Maude for Norman Lear, and I did Partridge Family, which was fun, and I did a lot of episodes for my first year or two, and then I went on to do pilots and movies of the week, which is a very difficult road to hoe because you can write a lot of things that never get made, and you still get paid, and you're still successful, but it's kind of depleting, shall we say.
So fast forward to 2016, and you've got Susan Says. And how long have you been doing that
I've
recording?
been doing this.
And you can listen to that. We can listen to it. The listeners can listen to it right off of their device. So whether you're sitting at your desktop or whatever, these fun little, 6, 7, 8-minute installments that kind of are just enough flavor that you feel like you caught a good segment on NPR. And I think that the writing is very tight. I don't know if you're just kind of doing this off the cuff or you kind of have.
No. I write them. I started out doing 3 a week, then I went down to 2. It depends on the topic. This week of course, because of the Democratic Convention, I did 3 because I had a lot to say. It's you go into Robin Hood Radio, you go into On Demand, and there are hundreds of them. I've been doing it for about 4 or 5 years now, so I have an awful lot of them, and I hope that they're personal enough, and they certainly allow me to express my opinion on things, and I have opinions.
And I think as women, we are only now coming back into a period where it feels as though the sun is shining on us being able to have opinions and share them, whether it's through Twitter or in conversations or just putting it out there as I do with my podcast and you do on Robin Hood Radio. So I have to believe that there are women who are paying attention and feeling a little more confident that their opinion matters and that they shouldn't be afraid to share it.
Well, I hope you're right. Of course we can speak out, and hopefully that we do. Somewhere else that I love to express myself is the Huffington Post. I've had about, I think, 10 pieces on there, and recently a lot of political stuff because I'm kind of a political junkie, and that's a great place also where they don't edit you and you kind of say what you want to say.
Excellent. All right. Well, so let's get into the topic at hand for today, and that is some of the observations that you've been having regarding TV in general today, but most specifically the journalism, the political coverage, and both because the theme of this podcast is women in TV. I think of it as because politics is covering other people. We'll talk a little bit later about how TV is covering women candidates, but let's talk first about the women who we see right now at the desk or in the field who are either the commentators, the anchors, the reporters, the moderators, and who's catching your eye both as emerging talent and who are we really grateful is still in the game and providing sort of that level hand.
Well, before I say that, I just want to say in the realm of sitcom, Veep is probably the best thing on television now. It's so beautifully written. It's so great in every way, and the truth of it is it's almost as scary as truth. So, I mean, you look at it and you look at the campaign that's running now and you don't know which it is. I don't think they can out-satire the satire. As far as the commentators, and I'm a news junkie, I always have been, and there are certain people that I adore and there are a couple of people I don't, but I think there's a huge amount of women now covering, particularly for better or worse on Fox. I mean, you can see now why there are all these leggy blonde girls with short skirts kind of, showing their heels and legs, because I guess Roger Ailes required that. But seriously, they do have an overwhelming number of women, and on that network there is one woman who I think is fair and balanced, Dana Perino, who used to be, I think, in the Bush team, and she seems to be fair. The real, I think, iconic figure working today is Andrea Mitchell, who's been around forever and is always wonderful and good. And I think there are some very good new people. I do love Megyn Kelly, I have to say. I think she's a star, obviously, and I hate to harp on it, but since she's the first one to put the first stake into Donald Trump's heart, I admire her. And there's a woman named Joy Reid. I think she...
Yes, Joy. We'll get to Joy Reid in a second. Getting back to Megyn Kelly, because really we've seen, we could talk about Fox, we can talk about MSNBC, which is where Joy Reid certainly came up as a commentator. But Megyn Kelly here, 6 months ago, all of a sudden she became one of the first targets, and she became the news story. And I think that she found that shocking. And so these Fox women in particular are starting to show perhaps who they really were or are, and they're growing in their own voices, kind of apart from whatever the traditional Fox woman role had been. Any thoughts, or what were you saying when Megyn Kelly got kind of blasted by Donald Trump?
Well, I think I watch Fox because obviously you can tell I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent, basically, with Democratic leanings, but I watch to see what the enemy is doing and saying, and it's so appalling sometimes. There's a show called The Five in which they have two sort of negative gentlemen, poor Juan Williams, who's supposed to be a liberal, and Kimberly Guilfoyle and Dana Perino. Their shows are much more attack shows. They're much more vitriolic. They're really not commentary as much as they are as warfare. But some of the other shows, there's a show with it's called Outnumbered, I think, with four women and one poor guy sitting in there, and mostly they've been just glamour talking heads. And it is. I said one time, they asked me if I would come on and be the other side, and I was kind of excited. I said, well, at least I still have the legs for it, because you have to wear very short skirts and have your legs out with heels, and you have to like swing your leg, obviously, while you're talking. It's very disconcerting, but that's what they do. Anyway, I think Megyn Kelly is a real star. First of all, she's very smart. She's very beautiful, and she took advantage of her time in the spotlight by asking Donald Trump that question. She opened a can of peas that has still reverberating, and I thank her for that. And then he, of course, in his way, attacked her back, which made her into the big star that she is. So we'll see now. I think her contract is up. We'll see if she's going to leave to go somewhere else. But she is definitely the combination of Barbara Walters, Diane Sawyer of the past. She's the one.
And in that same Fox stable of talent, then we also have Gretchen Carlson, Minnesotan, that she was, and Stanford graduate. You don't get in and out of Stanford with the grades that she had and the portfolio that she had, and not be pretty smart underneath.
Oh, for sure. And she brought down Roger Ailes. So there you go.
Right. So what do you think her future holds?
Well, I certainly don't think she'll be on Fox. Let's put it that way. But I don't know. I think she has a lawsuit against them, and I don't know. You know, the terrible thing, and this is still true, where we like to think we have parity and equality. When you're a whistleblower and you're a woman, I think it's a tough road to hoe. So I don't know what's going to happen to her, but I admire her and all of the other women that came out in this ridiculous case. I mean, it's just sort of unbelievable. And at this point, I think it feels to me, because I do watch MSNBC, CNN, and Fox, I do a lot of rotating, that there are more women than men on. There seem to be a huge number of women. And as I said, Joy Reid to me is one of the best. She's really smart. And then as far as consultants go, Ana Navarro, who to me is just the best. She's a Republican consultant. She's a Latina. She doesn't mince words. She tells it like it is. I love her. I watch her whenever she's on. I know I want to watch her.
And so we've talked about Fox and MSNBC, which are the cable-oriented news networks. Andrea Mitchell had been part of NBC back in the day, and now she's on MSNBC. Any on the traditional broadcast networks, ABC, CBS, or NBC, who really, or have they become so mainstream and just so morning talk show chatty that?
But to tell you the truth, I think that Gwen Ifill and Judy Woodruff on PBS are sort of the grand dames who have been at it for a while and who do it with great aplomb and are very good at what they do. They're not glamorous and not exciting, but they're still very good, and I do watch them on Friday night. The morning shows, I'm not up, so I haven't seen a lot of those people, Gayle King and whatever. But I do think they're look, in sheer number, there are a lot of women. Of course, the three men still do the network broadcast. But I think that has really shifted and changed. I do miss Diane Sawyer. I loved her. We'll see. We'll see who's coming up.
Yes, out of all these women who are in the field, at some point in time, when the opportunity again presents itself to replace that anchor position, and maybe the value of that anchor position has really diminished for what.
I think you're right. I think Katie Couric was the last blast, and it didn't seem to hold her in very good stead when she moved on. So perhaps that is no longer. There is one person, and it's like equal opportunity bashing. In the old days, there were so few of us women in the business that I really wanted us all to be supportive of each other. And one or two bad instances I had in my career were because of other women. And so it's something that I'm really sensitive about. But there is one new female broadcaster that has rubbed me the wrong way. And I find her a little brittle attack dog, Stephanie Rule, I think her name is. She kind of points her finger in their faces. I don't know. There's just something a little strident about her attack. And, I think part of it, and this is something that poor Hillary has had to deal with, women saying things in a manner that men do, or yelling or whatever, as they tend to do, get more criticism. And I'm probably guilty of that with Stephanie Rule, but there's just something about her that rubs me the wrong way. However, aside from doing a lot of this stuff, I also train speakers. So I know something about vocal quality. And the great example to me now is Elizabeth Warren. Here's somebody who looks like Julie Andrews and who talks like Marilyn Monroe and can zing with the best of them. And somehow when she does it, it's very effective as well as not annoying. I think she is the greatest. I'm crazy about her, and I think she has found the method, or just has that fortunate vocal quality that she can say things and get away with things that are really deadly without appearing to be too obnoxiously aggressive.
Mm-hmm. She definitely has the savvy and the capacity to, on her feet, deliver with great timing that essential statement that we haven't seen in a woman. I mean, Ann Richards delivered that incredible speech.
Oh, Ann was the best. I knew her. I was on the floor of the convention when she did her silver spoon line. Yeah. But Elizabeth Warren is really a star. And a lot of it, as I say, unfortunately, we judge women in a different way. So it's that superficial, what are they wearing, what do they look like? But she has a voice that can get away with anything because it's so lovely and warm, and, she can just eviscerate without it appearing to be too aggressive, as we're not supposed to be.
So we'll talk a little bit more about how some of these candidates have been covered, both women, Carly Fiorina, and was she covered fairly and stuff. But it was because I saw you tweeting about the Sunday morning shows, which have a very different flavor than even the nightly shows on MSNBC and Fox and CNN. So what do you see on Sunday mornings? And do you think women are starting to have an impact on how these shows are either constructed, or the lines of questioning, or the balance, even the behavior at the table?
Sadly, no, because when you look at all the Sunday morning shows, there are no women. I mean, Chris Wallace, who I find fair and balanced, Fareed Zakaria, who I adore, Chuck Todd, who I like. I mean, it used to be David Gregory. There are no women as far as I can think.
On Sunday on CNN, isn't Candy Crowley doing?
No longer.
No longer?
She's not. No, Candy Crowley hasn't been on for a while.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I think there's some new ones like Brooke Burke, like Poppy Harlow, who are all good, but in a way they're all a little indistinguishable. They're kind of all alike. That's why, to me, Joy Reid sticks out. She is tough and smart and good and has a presence. And but on the Sunday morning shows, it still is mostly the guys.
Wow. So moving on to the coverage, so Elizabeth Warren is not up for her Senate seat this year, so she will just be out, doing supportive work for Democratic candidates across the country as well as Hillary. Do you think if she were a man, would she probably be on more TV as a commentator and be thought of as more of an expert than she currently is? Or do you think?
Oh no, I think it's the reverse. I think because she's an anomaly, she's a well-spoken, soft-spoken woman with a killer touch who's very smart and fearless, that she has become a star. I think the one that made me laugh, is Joni Ernst, who's a Republican, who was supposed to be on Republican convention, but they didn't put her on in prime time, and her commercials were that she could castrate cows, I think. I think that's what made her famous. I don't know what that means, but yeah. And I loved her in the Democratic convention, all those Democratic senator women up there. That was a great treat. No, I think in the media now, even though in drama and possibly in comedy there is not parity still, certainly among directors and everything. Unfortunately, in reality shows, it's all women, and I confess I watch those horrible housewife shows, and it's like they're so destructive to women and the world. I don't know why I do, but I watch. But there's I think there's an awful lot more presence of women on television now than there was in the past, certainly.
Mhm. We had a few women candidates in the pool. Well, no, really, it was just Carly Fiorina this time.
Right. And Dr. Jill Stein, I don't know what she's a doctor of.
Oh,
I don't want to know, but her commercials are starting to run now. And we have Tammy Duckworth, I think. We have Kelly Ayotte. It's, still being a woman in Congress it's a rarity, and so they get some more attention. But I really don't know how they're being covered in time or favorability.
Sure. And then on the Republican side, Nikki Haley, it feels like she's stepped back quite a bit from I think she's among the first to distance herself from Donald Trump. I think they're all realizing if they're up this year, they've got to take a huge step back. And if they're up in 2 years, how long is that smell going to stick? And where's the world going?
I just don't think that being a woman in this world of politics is an easy thing, and whether you like Hillary or don't like Hillary, I have tremendous respect for her for being tough enough and being resilient enough to still be up there fighting it. It's more than I could do, I'll tell you.
Yeah. As at the very minimum, even the work that's being done with the women from Fox in terms of trying to turn around the culture, or at least stabilize the culture and bring it into 2016, so that there isn't sexual harassment, so that maybe you don't have to wear short skirts. If we can kind of come back to the middle, at least with regard to really why people want to watch the news and why they need to watch the news, maybe they will bring some voices forward. And for Gretchen Carlson and Megyn Kelly to say, take me seriously and let me ask questions that need to be asked, that can only raise the bar with regard to the quality of the dialogue. We grew up with such reliance on the journalistic integrity of ABC, NBC, and CBS.
Mm-hmm.
The nightly reign of Walter Cronkite, who would dare lie to you.
Right.
This is all post Watergate. This is third wave feminism, and there is a certain jadedness to it. But
in discussing network news and how the Internet has changed the delivery of the news, often with opinion, it wasn't long before the power of social media and the bullies you find on them came up.
Internet and stuff like that, I'm like terrified to be alone with it, in case I break it or something. But I adore watching events on Twitter and Facebook with people. I love watching the Emmys, the Academy Awards. I love watching the conventions with people, and then having that exchange with people is so much fun. And I just realized the power of it and the fear of it, because I went on a campaign. The Khans, who were this lovely, extraordinary family, Muslim family and soldier, were attacked by Ann Coulter, who, as far as I'm concerned, is the devil. And I got on a little soapbox saying, let's get her off television for these despicable remarks, as well as many others she's made. And I got 600 likes and followers and things. And then I also got attacked by some people. So, my feeling about Ann Coulter is the viciousness of this woman and the ability that she has to parlay her viciousness into money is just beyond belief. I don't talk about a woman on TV that I'd like to see go.
So you talked a little bit about working with Gary Marshall and with Norman Lear and the tremendous and the Mary Tyler Moore, the entire empire there. So we have now in today's world Shonda Rhimes as finally the woman who is putting her own name on it. Mary Tyler Moore obviously was and Lucille Ball were key players in what they did, but they were very much working alongside husbands at the time. Shonda Rhimes, do you see somebody else coming up who is running shows and starting to build the empire like she is?
Well, I think what's really interesting now in comedy is the amount of extraordinarily talented women who are just, accepted in being the showrunner, the star, the producer, everything. Amy Schumer comes to mind. I think she's just amazing, and I adore her show. I think it's brilliant. Tina Fey, of course, is, one of the best, and she and Amy as hosts of female hosts of award shows, they can't be beat. They're terrific.
Right.
There are some people that I'm not fans of, but I'd rather not say because, as I say, as a woman, I like to be supportive of the fact of women. But those, I think, are extraordinarily talented people. Mindy Kaling, I think, is very talented. And I think that there's finally an openness to the work that these women are doing, and they seem to be extremely successful at running their own shows.
Mm-hmm. You spoke earlier about Veep, which you think is perhaps one of the best show or one of the best on TV today. Also, Madam Secretary. I mean, we seem to, since Hillary was elected senator, lo these 16 years ago, there has been more viewing of women in political positions. Do you have a sense that has made a difference? Is that something that women of all generations have watched? I never watched it, partly because I did have a political background, and I don't like to watch political dramas.
Oh, interesting. No, I never watched it. And I'll tell you, as I get older, there's less time. I used to watch everything, and of course when I was reviewing things for my podcast, I would watch everything in the new seasons. Now I really don't. I watch very few things, and I tend to watch drama more. But Veep is so extraordinary. I know they have a lot of political people working on that show, and she, of course, is amazing. But the scary thing is, it's so close to reality now. It's like they can't satirize anything because it's so strange what's happening now, if you could ever foresee this. But that show is amazing, and I like to binge watch it. I like to watch on demand and just watch a whole bunch of them.
Okay, last prediction from you with regard to 2016, and we're going to have to do chickens again. And Samantha Bee clearly has been a breakthrough satirist. Do you see 2016 as perhaps paving the way for her to break some glass ceiling of the nighttime comedy shows?
I've watched her several times, and I think she's marvelous. Again, it never seems to be equal, because when you have somebody like a Jon Stewart, of course, who's left now, but John Oliver, to me, who is beyond brilliant, there are few slots, and it seems like they'll always put more men in, but she certainly does a great job. But at some point, there'll be a breakthrough person. I don't know who it is. I mean, they said it was going to be Chelsea Handler, but she kind of went another direction. So Samantha Bee, I've seen it a couple of times. I think she's really good. But as I say, there's few slots, and to me, nobody on television, none of the guys, none of the women can match John Oliver and his brilliance and his delivery, and I guess.
Yes. Well, I think the Constitution and the body politic and the 50 states, we can get through this.
You think we'll survive?
The country will survive, yes.
You're more optimistic than I. From your lips to her ears.
We might just make it after all. How's that?
Oh, hey, I'm going to throw my hat up in the air now.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, darling.
My sincerest apologies for inferior sound quality on this installment. Advanced TV Herstory does welcome technical help in any form, so if you're a master at the controls, please let me know. I'll sign you up. Thanks for tiptoeing through the political and TV tulips with me and TV writer, commentator, Susan Silver. Find Susan on Twitter at Suz, S-U-Z, _8, or go to robinhoodradio.com to hear her thoughts on a great range of topics. Feedback about this installment of Advanced TV Herstory is welcome. Shoot us a line at advancedtvherstory@gmail.com. Music on this segment comes from freemusicarchive.org, and it's a piece by Project 5A called Wet Ashtray. TV journalism actually has a tremendous sorority. So many incredible journalists and reporters worth covering. Those chapters of TV Herstory remain to be told. Stay tuned. I'm your host, Cynthia Bemis Abrams. Thanks for listening.